top 2 strategies for using nootropics for verbal fluency. I mean, there's many of them, and we'll sort of discuss that in this video, but there are 2 that are particularly useful. By the way, if you're wondering why my face is jacked up, I got in a sparring match with a dude at the gym, a planned sparring match, and it was totally fucking worth it, so whatever. And thanks so much for sticking with me in my banged up face. My girlfriend's like super frightened about it. She's like, is this what men do? I'm like, well, yep, this is what guys do, okay? Thanks so much for watching. I'll explain all this stuff in a bit. Thanks for being with me. Check us out on the web at livecortex.com. Livecortex.com/blog is a giant blog for nootropics information. Episode number 78 of the podcast just launched, so you have to listen to that. It's very awesome and super informative on nootropics. And that's it. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/cortexstacks. That's where we're at. And I'm going to run through 3 of our major products that support this broadcast. We'll explain the rest at the end of this video. Here they are.
Elite level nootropic
Okay,
products.
number 1, we've got a stack. For those of you that don't know, it's called Cortex. It's exceptionally strong in the eyes of our users. The whole thing with me is I was sort of pissed at the pre-made stacks that existed when I was building this product because none of them were significantly powerful at all. I'd get some benefit and not what I wanted to get. I wanted to get like a phenylpiracetam, like Afanil, like strong response. So I built a stack to do that. It's used by poker players, corporate people. Everybody around the world takes Cortex. Get it at livecortex.com. If you use the coupon code 5 right now, F5VE, you can get it for $25. Pretty cheap. That'll last about a week. Livecortex.com. If you need my help personally, we've got a consulting service. It's a 40-minute call with me on nootropics. And if you're new to nootropics, we wrote a book you need to read. It's called Smarter, Better, Faster. It teaches you everything. You got to read it 10 to 15 times if you get it, okay? Livecortex.com. Okay, so got an email, giant email, so I'm going to kind of summarize and paraphrase. Guy is in a corporate job in which he's got to do a lot of speaking. He's later on in life. He's in his late 50s, and so things are starting to go a little bit south in terms of his verbal fluency, recall, and things of this nature. So he got into nootropics and largely fixed a lot of that stuff, with the exception of the verbal fluency part. So his memory recalls back, he's like productive and motivated, but he still is having an issue with verbal fluency. And he emailed us and was like, hey Ryan, what is the best few strategies that might be generally applicable to lots of folks for verbal fluency? And the answer is this. Usually there aren't generally applicable strategies, nootropic-wise, that'll induce particular brain state in large quantities of people. But with the exception of what I'm about to discuss. And I say that having tested the ingredients I'm going to give you in pretty similar combinations with a lot of people, and having them all positively respond in a verbal fluency manner to these suggestions. And the other thing too is like working on verbal fluency, if you think about it from the perspective of just like how the brain might work and how like which underlying sort of neurochemical and neuroanatomical things are going on that might facilitate verbal fluency. If you could optimize them, then verbal fluency will pretty plausibly be the outcome. And so it's all about modifying chemicals to a certain extent. Making brain fluidity happen is the way you make verbal fluency happen, and working on things like phosphatidylcholine, which is the outer part of cells, it's the cell membrane and neurons, is one great way to do that. I mean, it seems pretty clear. So here are my suggestions. Number 1 is a real curveball of a nootropic compound that we haven't talked about all that often, and that should also be taken pretty sparingly, and I'll get to why here in a second. That compound is called Acorus calamus. Acorus calamus. It's like a brown looking herb, looking thing. It's otherwise known as sweet flag. I think like that's one of the other monikers for it. It's called Acorus calamus. The dose is 100 to 500 milligrams. Typically 200 to 400 milligrams is where people are going to find a good sweet spot. And when we were formulating Cortex, I had brought that compound in to try to fuss with it, and like without fail, it just induced massive verbal fluency in me. So whatever the mechanisms are, I actually forget the mechanisms of it. It's Googleable. That seems to be working pretty significantly on making the brain, putting it in a place where verbal fluency is the outcome. And it was always made my brain super fluid, and verbal fluency was always the thing to follow after that. So that's number 1, Acorus calamus. The caveat is that there's a compound in it or a metabolic byproduct of it that has been labeled a potential carcinogen. And just to put it in context, alcohol is also a definite carcinogen, okay? So it's all about take it in context and whatever, take it sparingly and whatever. And so that's the deal. Acorus calamus, if you're really in a pinch and you need it, dose Acorus calamus. It's an herb. It should do the trick for you verbal fluency-wise. The second stack is a stack And that is the following. Well, it's a uridine, CDP choline, Alcar, B complex, DHA centric stack, pretty similar to the Mr. Happy stack, and sort of a Cortex nootropic stack variant. Here are the ingredients and here are the quantities. 150 milligrams of uridine monophosphate, 100 milligrams of alpha GPC, it's 1,000 milligrams of DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, that's a omega-3 fatty acid you can find in fish oil. It's 300 milligrams of acetyl L-carnitine, and it's a B complex, just a run-of-the-mill B complex that has the RDA for B9 and B12 at the very least. And it'll probably have quadruple the RDA for B5 and B7 and things of this nature, okay? That stack there is better than the Accorus Calamus compound that I announced initially. And yeah, I mean, you're working on so many good things with all those compounds. Really neurogenesis and the process of repairing neurons. You're doing a whole bunch of upregulating of cellular repair basically with that stack. And that's a stack that's being studied for basically alleviating Alzheimer's symptoms in it's like a drink. It's called Suvinate. It's being studied in Australia for that. And that's also the basis of the famous Mr. Happy stack, which is a stack that really turns on all this good stuff and induces verbal fluency. You can Google Mr. Happy stack. We've written articles and done videos about it. It's really pretty awesome. It's also a Cortex nootropic stack variant. We've got uridine and CDP choline in there in similar quantities, and that's one of the reasons that stack works so well. Okay, so take that advice. Those are my two generally applicable verbal fluency nootropic compounds and or stacks. Hope that's been helpful. Ryan at livecortex.com. If you have any questions, I'll answer them on air the best I can when I get to them. And that's it. If you need my help personally, we've got a consulting service. It's a 40-minute call with me. Just get it at livecortex.com. We do a Skype call and figure out what stacks work well for you, or you can ask me questions for 40 minutes. That's what people do sometimes. And then, try our stack. Our stack Cortex right now, $25 if you use the coupon code 5. That's pretty awesome. And then if you're new to nootropics and you have questions and you're perusing Reddit and you can't find the answer and people are there being jerks like they are, just buy Smarter, Better, Faster. We wrote a book on it, on nootropics, modern nootropics, and how to take them and all the rest of that. Stacks inside. You got to get it and you got to read it 10 to 15 times. You can buy it at livecortex.com. It's digital. You can download it right away. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you next time. What's up, everybody? Ryan Michael Balla here. Hey, thanks for watching the video. Look, we've got, as it stands, 5 primary products that I want to just explain to you. You heard us mention them during the video, so I'm going to break them down. Number 1, from left to right, the Cortex Nootropic Stack. This is a cognitive enhancement stack that you really want to take to turn the lights on. Just to give you an idea, hardcore business folks that require 18 to 20 hours of brain function, take the Cortex stack. That's what we initially designed it for, but then like everybody in the nootropic sphere loved it. Verbal fluency, speed of processing, motivation, drive to want to work. That's what the Cortex stack does. Moving right along, the aniracetam guide there, that is called the Beginner's Guide to Aniracetam, breaks down 25 powerful aniracetam stacks, shows you how to use aniracetam. It's essentially the everything guide to aniracetam. Long demanded, folks asked us for it. We delivered. It is fully digital, lots of powerful stacks. And then there's the nootropic stack for the business professional. That's basically 100, right around 100 powerful uridine, modafinil, theacrine, aniracetam, oxiracetam, phenylpiracetam, Alcar stacks for business situations, for the type of brain states that business folks need for sustained performance. Next is the Racetam God Guide. That is a high-level every Racetam guide, digital guide. We've got all the major Racetams with accompanying focus stacks and memory stacks and speed of processing stacks. In that Racetam. There's 8 major nootropic Racetams, and that guide explains all of them and accompanying stacks. Then there's the Noopept Pro Stack List. The Noopept Pro Stack List is a digital guide that explains oral, so just taking it by mouth, sublingual, taking it under the tongue, and then intranasal, spraying Noopept nasal spray in your nose, stacks. It's just a bunch of stacks, a giant stack list of Noopept stacks that are highly effective, pro-level, specific brain state inducing type of Noopept stacks. That thing has been a hit out there with the market. And then last, there's Smarter, Better, Faster. Smarter, Better, Faster is the all-around, everything nootropics digital guide. If you just want to learn everything, many racetams, modafinil, etc., get Smarter, Better, Faster. It's like the guide you need to know if you're new to nootropics to learn basically everything and to walk away knowing what you need to know on nootropics. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. Get this stuff at livecortex.com and rock on.